Hello and welcome to this episode of the GrowVC Everyone Funding Startups podcast. I'm your host Marcus, and today we're talking to Michael Robertson, who's been a technology entrepreneur for many years in several companies and contexts. And we're also joined by Valda from GrowVC. So first of all, welcome to the podcast, Michael.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you. Would you give a short introduction to yourself and to your background?
Well, I've been in the technology business for about, nearly 20 years. Most people know me as the founder and CEO of MP3.com. That was a digital music pioneer. It's a company I founded in the extra bedroom of my house and grew to 300 people and took it public. And at the time, we were the largest digital music company in the world. And eventually sold to the largest music company in the world, Vivendi Universal. So a lot of people know me in the digital music circles because of that company and a company I run today called MP3 Tunes. But I've actually done other companies as well. More recently, I sold Gizmo 5, which was a voice over IP company, to Google about a year and a half ago. Before that, I did a Linux company. So I've been involved in technology startups for 15 plus years.
All right, and you mentioned founding MP3.com in your extra bedroom. So how did you first get started as an entrepreneur? Was it something you planned for, or was it more of a surprise?
Well, I grew up very poor, and I didn't like being poor. Being poor sucks. And when you grow up with an empty refrigerator sometimes in your house and old clothes and, with holes and being embarrassed at school because you couldn't afford the yearbook and all of those sorts of things, there's two ways to respond. One is to say, well, that's the cards that were dealt to me and, it is what it is. I responded the other way, which is, hey, I'm going to do whatever it takes to not live like this in the future and to make a better life for me and my future family. So that's what I did. So from an early time, I knew in my head that I had to have my own company if I was going to do better than my parents. And so to me, it was easy math, right? It was easy, a conclusion to reach that I had to start my own companies. And so right out of college, I began that path.
So you definitely had a good intrinsic motivator to get you started. When you first set up your company and started running that, did it go smoothly, or was it more of a surprising career context in that way? Did you know what entrepreneurship was like before you started?
No, no, because, I didn't have parents that could teach me, and it's not something they teach in school, unfortunately. In school, they're telling you, oh, go work for the government, go do, work for a nonprofit and help the world and all this kind of stuff. And they don't really teach people how to work in a business or how to start a business for the most part. And so it is a lot of on-the-job learning. Right out of college, I started my first company, which was a consulting company, a computer consulting company. And that was going well, but as a consultant, there's only so many hours in a day, and you're charging people billing time, and so there's only so many hours in a day, so you really can't grow a single-person consulting company well. So I decided, I'm going to write some software. So my next little venture was to write some software. I wrote something called Network Security Guard, which this was way back in the mid-'90s. It would analyze a network and look for security vulnerabilities. At the time, you had to sort of explain to people why they should care about network security because it was so early. But I started to make more money from selling software. And selling software can grow large because you have a multiplier factor, right? You write the software one time and you can sell it 1 million times, unlike a consulting company. So I knew that was a business that made a lot more sense than a consulting company.
And you run several companies during your career. What have been some of the most central or focal learning points from your ventures?
Well, one of the interesting companies that I ran that was a good learning exercise was a company called Media Minds. Now, you've never heard of it because it was a colossal disaster. It was a huge failure. But if you're a smart individual, I think you'll actually learn more when you fail than when you succeed. What what I was trying to do with Media Minds was start a company. I had seen my first digital camera. It was the Apple QuickTake. And I don't know how long you guys have been around technology, but that was a big beast of a camera. It looked like a pair of binoculars, and it could store, like 8 or 16 high-res images. And I put high-res in quotes because they were only 640 by 320, so even the high-res images were very low quality. But I looked at that and I said, you know what? This is going to change photography. And so I'm going to go build some software that I think people will need, which is software that will manage their photo albums. And so that's what we did. Now, it sounds like a good concept, and people did need to manage their photos. And of course, today, companies like Picasa and Flickr and others like Instapaper let you do that, and have built substantial businesses around that. But back when I did it, it was too early. And because it was too early, and because we had done desktop software when there was a slow shift to the web happening, we weren't successful. We were a failure. But that taught me a lot. And one of the things that it taught me is that in the type of businesses that I do, I'm always looking for a change in the industry where the leaderboard can get reshuffled, where a new guy gets to sit at the table and can grow a business. And in those types of businesses, timing is everything. If you're too early, you fail. If you're too late, you fail. You have to get the timing just right. So what I learned from that failure was listen to the market. It's not ready until consumers say it's ready. And so was I right that digital photography was going to change everything? Yes. Was I right that people wanted to manage their photos and share them with friends? Absolutely. But I was wrong on the timing. And if you're wrong on the timing in technology, you can do everything else right and still lose. So I swore after that one to always be more sensitive to timing and listening to and watching what consumers are doing.
All right. I actually thought I'd flip the tables on this, since I know that Valda knows quite a lot about being early in the market. It's one of those things that I always tease you about as well. What do you think about being early in the market? Where is the right balance? And Valda, why don't you take this one?
Sure. Well, I guess that the first thing to do is to realize where you are at the positioning towards the market. Like you mentioned, I've been early couple of times spending all the money too quickly to try to build the market. So basically, one was only a few years too early, and the other one was something like 6 years too early. It's difficult when you kind of see where the market is going, and then you expect you have to, like, everything is like you have to be quick on the market, you have to be fast and get it out there. But when you do that and you're too early, it doesn't really help either. So I think the most important thing is try to understand, first of all, whether you're early or whether you're late. If you're late, then and you're an entrepreneur that likes to build like really unique new things, then I guess that's not the market to be involved anymore. But oftentimes it's also, even if you know you're early, it's very difficult to say how early. That's the most important thing, to try to see where you are, and when you are early, try to pace yourself towards the market in the right manner, but at the same time be ready to scale quickly.
And one article that you, Michael, actually wrote last year that caught our eye in particular was an article on charity and the impact of charity. I remember this article quite well. And at GrowVC, we've been talking about getting the everyday person to support entrepreneurship and become a stakeholder in startups, and not in the form of charity, but rather in the form of small investments. So, Michael, do you see a difference in how people behave when it comes to charity, or then, for example, if they were more invested in, let's say, invested in startup companies in the form of very, very small sums, like $20s or these?
Well, what I see in the U.S. is a real bias that anything government directed or charitable is good for society. and it